Well, hello, greetings, and welcome to Silverstone Live on Facebook. Is it Friday already? God, the week's gone fast. With the recorded videos available on, as you know, on my YouTube channel immediately after the live show. Let's get down to business. Leslie Morgan is a New York Times best-selling author. I've got quite a long introduction to her because she's had quite a long career, and it's only just starting, really. Leslie Morgan is a New York Times best-selling author, a columnist for the Washington Post, and a keynote speaker and consultant on women's leadership, work-life balance, inspirational parenting, overcoming adversity, and surviving violence against women. Leslie is a domestic violence survivor, and her 2009 memoir, Crazy Love, was a New York Times bestseller and the subject of her first TED Talk. It remains one of the most viewed TED Talks globally. Leslie's 2012 book, The Baby Chase, explores the way that surrogacy is changing American families, with a subsequent TED Talk at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., exploring surrogacy's global impact. Leslie is a familiar face on almost every TV news show and network, and she has been featured in virtually every leading magazine found on newsstands, especially Hudson newsstands, while you browse holding a cup of coffee. And she is a real smarty pants, having received her BA in English from Harvard College and an MBA in marketing from the prestigious Wharton School of Business. After graduating from Wharton, Leslie launched Splendor. You know Splendor, I know Splendor. Splendor brand sweetener throughout Australia, the Mideast and Latin America for Johnson & Johnson. Over the years, she has turned her professional experience into advocacy for abused women as a spokeswoman at the Harriet Tubman Center in Minneapolis and as a board member of the One Love Foundation and a DC Volunteer Lawyers Project. Leslie's latest book, her fourth nonfiction work, is The Naked Truth, a memoir which explores female aging and sexuality after motherhood and divorce. This is my recommendation, ladies and germs, for the best summer read of 2019. The book is compelling from the opening sentence, beautifully written, heartbreaking, funny, and erotic as hell. I am pleased to welcome Leslie Morgan to Silverstone Live. Hello, Leslie.
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here.
What is your favorite flavor donut?
Well, that has to be just a regular straight up glazed.
How dull.
Ah, so delicious. Nothing better.
You wrote on Facebook, I love ice cream more than almost anything else on earth. I think I can guess what that almost is alluding to, so we won't even go there. But Leslie, given your slight nuttiness, I have to believe you enjoy ice cream with pecans, and I know, I'm going to put money on this, you definitely look like a chocolate ice cream lover, so I'm guessing Haagen-Dazs chocolate.
You're right about the Haagen-Dazs, but you're not right about the flavor. The flavor is coffee.
Damn.
I'm a connoisseur of coffee ice cream, and Haagen-Dazs is the best. It's the bomb.
Well, when you next come to Philadelphia, I will take you to Bassett's Ice Cream, which is the best ice cream on the planet and the oldest ice cream company in the world. Anyway, we're moving on. Jean-Pierre Clary de Florian, the 18th century French poet and romance writer, said, "Pleasure of love lasts but a moment. Pain of love lasts a lifetime." So what was true 3 centuries ago is still true today and probably always will be, right, Leslie?
I agree totally, yes. I wish it weren't so, but it's true.
What a clever man he was. So, some of my questions ramble a bit, but I have to get my point across because I have become sort of a connoisseur of your work. I spent 13 to 14 hours yesterday in your company and obviously read the book. sometimes happily ever after doesn't happen, but happier than ever before can and does. So that quote was from your latest book, The Naked Truth. It suggests to me, and I might be off track here, but it suggests to me that you're alluding to happily ever after with a soulmate, but having the love and closeness of your children and good friends, as you thankfully have, is all one needs to live out their lives, really knowing that these important people who have unconditional love for you, having them there to hold your hand through the end of days, surely that can be enough. And you can still have boyfriends for fun, but couldn't that be enough?
I think that it can be enough. And I think sometimes we don't get much choice about that. And to me, it's important to see love where it is. It's come in so many unexpected places. And I think that men can be healers as well as destroyers. And my hope is still that I find that one soulmate. But until then, my soulmate is me. And I'm sustained by my wonderful female and male friends and my kids and life itself. But yeah, I'm a hope junkie. I still continue to hope that I find that one romantic soulmate who holds my hand when I die and is great in bed and makes me laugh and all those other things. But it's a lot to ask for. It's a lot to hope for.
Yeah. As long as it doesn't, I suppose, prevent you from enjoying the moment that you live when other good things happen. I think it's something good to hope for. I want to play, if you don't mind, the gut-wrenching and shocking introduction to your famous TED Talk, which will, within 20 seconds, give people your horrendous backstory, which we're not going to dwell on today. You've done it so many times, but it is integral to your book, your new book, and I want people to see it. So I'm just going to play that, and I hope it doesn't upset you too much, but no, it won't. I need to play it. So we're going to play that right now.
I'm not a psychiatrist, a social worker, or an expert in domestic violence. I'm just one woman with a story to tell. I was 22. I had just graduated from Harvard College. I'd moved to New York City for my first job as a writer and editor at 17 magazine. I had my first apartment, my first little green American Express card, and I had a very big secret. My secret was that I had this gun loaded with hollow point bullets pointed at my head by the man who I thought was my soulmate many, many times. The man who I loved more than anybody on earth held a gun to my head and threatened to kill me more times than I can even remember.
There may be people watching us today, Leslie, who are suffering through domestic violence. And the most important statement I have heard you make is probably the simplest sentence, and yet it's so profound and powerful, and that is, abuse thrives only in silence.
It's absolutely true. So the advice for anybody who's being abused is to tell somebody. It's an incredibly powerful and empowering thing to do, and it's what helped me get out. And it's what I tell everybody. Tell somebody who you trust. Find somebody who believes you and listens to you, and everything else will come after that.
You mentioned in the TED Talk, actually, I was trying to think because I've read so much, it was the TED Talk, that one of the problems about sharing it is that people are in fear of their lives when they tell people that the person, their husband, their whoever they're living with, will come after them. How do you prevent that? I mean, do you get a restraining order from the police? How do you prevent that? And how do you sleep at night knowing that there's somebody who's got severe social issues who might come after you?
Well, every abuse victim knows what to do to protect him or herself. And I say himself intentionally because men can be abused too. Mm-hmm. And we are the authorities on how to keep ourselves safe. So people need to listen to us and respect what we want and need. And it takes the average domestic violence victim 7 attempts to leave before he or she successfully does. There are a lot of false starts, and that's normal. So sometimes restraining orders are extremely effective. Sometimes having your abuser go to jail is very effective. Sometimes just quietly kind of ending the relationship or getting them to end the relationship and moving on will work. It really depends on the circumstances and the exact nature of your relationship and the abuser's profile. And the other thing that is really important to understand is that although it's very dangerous to leave, and the majority of domestic violence homicides happen after we have ended the relationship, the thing that you need to know is that intimacy is the trigger for abuse. My ex-husband never hit a friend, a boss, a coach. I was the person, and his intimate partners were the only people who he attacked and tried to kill. And so once you remove the intimacy from the relationship, you also remove the trigger. And so what you need to do, and this is really hard, especially when children are involved, is to cut off the emotionality of the relationship and be extremely calm and measured and logical and steady. And for some people, it's almost impossible. For me, it was almost impossible, but that's what saved me, and that's what allowed me to leave.
Well, it's a frightening subject, and I can't believe I'm talking to somebody who has lived through that and who has come out the other side, seemingly. And we'll get down to this, get talking about this shortly, maybe in a way, in a roundabout way, perhaps, but seemingly unscathed. But I know that's not a fact. But I mean, it's just amazing that you're talking to me today, and I'm very proud that's happened for you. And now, Leslie, my love, let's get down to the naked truth. After your second marriage collapsed, you set out to find 5 boyfriends, just, a randomly selected number for trysts. Such a sweet, archaic word. I prefer the more colourful adjectives for what you wanted, essentially to have your brains bonked out of your skull. You needed men a lot, you say, to help you rediscover and find yourself again, to help you rediscover and find yourself again after divorce. But is it possible, Leslie, you wanted to rediscover yourself for the first time in your life?
In a certain way, yes. Because I had never lived like this before. I had never approached men and sex like a buffet and just saying, well, I want that one, I want that one, I want that one, this is what I want. And what's more astonishing is that I got it. So it was a very unusual and completely new experience for me. And to just back up a little bit, the basic facts were that I found myself divorced again at age 49, the second time. I'd lost myself along with my marriage. And I knew I couldn't find myself on a diet of self-help and yoga and complaining about men to my girlfriends. I knew that despite 2 terrible marriages and being a domestic violence victim, I still loved men. And that the way to finding myself again was going to be through men. And as you said, I needed men and I needed a lot of them. And I somehow knew that. And I was old enough and confident enough to say to hell with convention. I don't care that everybody tells me I just have to get married again. I don't want that. I want a lot of great men in my life, and I want to have sex with a lot of them, and it's all going to be great sex. I'm not going to settle in any way. And that's what I set out and did. And then because I'm a writer, I had the even crazier idea to write about it. And that's what the naked truth is.
Well, I must share something with you, and this might interest you, given your role in life, working with women in one capacity or another. I am just looking on our monitors here at our live broadcast on Facebook, And there's a warning which I have never had in my career of 20 years doing shows such as this or podcasts. And I'm going to read this to you. I'm going to read this to everybody. Your video is blocked in Andorra, United Arab Emirates, Afghanistan, Antigua, and 245 other countries. I guess that's because we're talking about an independent woman and her sexual escapades. How narrow-minded, because it goes beyond that. The freedom of women is once again being abused by all these countries. Can you believe that? I just picked that up on the screen.
It makes me so sad, but I can believe it. And to me, it's all of the same thread that, there is a certain part of all societies that want women to be dominated by men, whether it's through domestic violence or genital cutting or shaming us for being human and having sexual desires. And it's unfair to women, obviously, but you know what? It's also terrible for men, because I believe that men are much happier when the women in their lives are happy and fulfilled and free. And so I think all of those countries are wrong. And I think they're doing a disservice to themselves and to the women and to the men in their countries.
Now, I wonder if this is going to be true on YouTube. My guess is that it absolutely will be. It's interesting. I have to just mention this because this is not related in any way, but I hadn't expected this to pop up on the screen. That, I do a lot of photography. We're going to be doing a spin-off show, which is about fashion and bringing in the photos that I take with the two wonderful models I work with. And when I put a post up, it's nothing to get 7,000 or 8,000 likes from these countries. So obviously they're not restricted, but unfortunately they're not seeing women they're seeing models in fashion, and they're probably seeing them in a demeaning way. This has annoyed me, actually. This has really got my back up. But anyway, in my introduction, I mentioned the Hudson book stand and the cup of coffee, because spilling coffee over a gorgeous man as you did has to be the best pickup accident ever. Would you think that's one you would recommend?
I don't know if I would recommend it, because what if you get hot coffee someplace that you don't want it to be? And when I spilled that coffee on Dylan in the airport, it was a complete accident. I had no idea what I was doing. And as I write in The Naked Truth, I was shocked beyond, I was speechless, because not only had I spilled somebody's coffee, but he was the most handsome man who I'd ever seen. And as we'll get to, that was the first man that I slept with after getting out of a sexless marriage. I hadn't had sex in years, and I didn't have sex with him right there on the airport floor. It took some time to get to know him and to, have our tryst. But it was mind-boggling that I met that man and that we made it happen. And I'm very grateful to him.
I don't think it would have been nice on the floor. They're pretty filthy at airport
With him,
floors.
it would have been nice anywhere, I gotta say.
I was thinking that any woman over 50 who may want to emulate the adventures you set out on might consider 6 boyfriends instead of 5, because the first one, for you at least, was, pun intended, a dry run. So let me just build on that a little bit. Given that it was a dry run, and I think people can figure out what I mean by that, what was your apprehension at the first encounter after a 20-year marriage, especially jumping into bed with a man 20 years your junior? Lucky bitch. Was it performance, being seen naked with signs of age and childbearing, or some remaining baggage from your marriages?
Well, it was all of those things and more. I was unbelievably excited, and I couldn't believe I was doing this. I'd never had sex with somebody in a hotel room before, met somebody, a virtual stranger, just to have sex. So that was crazy. He was so handsome. He was 20 years younger. I had no idea that younger men liked older women. And yes, I was terrified that he was going to run screaming from the room when he saw my body. I hadn't been naked in front of anybody except my ex-husband in 20 years, and I hadn't been naked in front of him for 5 years probably. And it was just really a lot of emotion. And then, but the thing that got me through it is that he was 20 years younger and he was so beautiful, beautiful in clothes and beautiful naked. And I was really honest with him. I told him I hadn't had sex in a long time, and he was thrilled about that. And, you know, as you're alluding to, the sex itself was not the best sex of my life. And it just didn't make any difference at all. I was just so happy to be having sex again and to want to have sex again, and to trust and like men again. That was very powerful to me. And I wish that it had continued with Dylan. But as I write in the book, after too short a time from my viewpoint, he felt he couldn't see me anymore. And that is when I came up with this crazy, wonderful idea to have 5 boyfriends for a year. And I didn't ever have 5. You know, sometimes you have 1, sometimes you have 10. And they weren't really boyfriends. But it still was a great idea, and it got me through. And it led me to a whole new dimension of feeling really confident about myself. And oh my God, how could have this happened at age 50, essentially, you know, that I felt sexier and more confident than I ever had in my life. Who gets that? You know, it is great. And I had to write about this because most women don't get it. Most women in their 50s and 60s, despite the fact that we have more intense orgasms and are much more comfortable in our bodies than younger women, a lot of women in their 50s and 60s aren't having sex at all, whether they're married or not. And I was really determined to try to change that and encourage women to look around and see the wonderful men who are and potential partners who are out there and go after them.
Well, I'm glad you wrote the book. I actually not only read the book, but I listened to you reading it. So I had a double dose of the book. It was much more fun listening to you reading it, though. Anyway, women of a certain age, after some years into a marriage, often stop making an effort with makeup and clothes, and probably don't even buy pretty lingerie. A fact you note in your book, and the fact is, Leslie, I learned this from fashion students on my podcast, on our fashion feature. I used students from Drexel University, where our show's fashion guru, Anne Cecil, was a professor. And before Anne and I started doing the shows together, I worked with the students. And the thing I learned from this young student, and I felt so stupid, she told me that she loved silk lingerie. And I said, well, that's great if you get lucky that night. And she said, it's got nothing to do with that. It makes me feel good. Right. So my point that I was going to make here is dressing nicely, putting on makeup, even wearing beautiful underwear is done for you. It's for your own self-esteem, right?
It's totally true. I mean, this is an inside job. This is feeling great about yourself as a woman, and a woman of any age, is about how you feel on the inside. And sometimes there are good props that you can use to make you feel that way. You know, lingerie, for me, it's lipstick and short skirts and high heels. Everybody has their formula, but it's to make you feel that great glow inside, that you're happy to be alive and happy to be female and comfortable in your own skin. And what I found is that when you feel that way, kind of magically, wonderful potential partners are drawn to you. And the rest, all not easy, it just sort of flows from there. But the first step, you're exactly right, is doing whatever you need to do to feel good on the outside and the inside.
Some may say that your sexual encounters in The Naked Truth contradict the views of a feminist, but I would argue that they are precisely in keeping with your requisite as a feminist for equality of the sexes.
Right. I would agree with you totally, Philip. But you're also right, too, that it's a lot to wrap your head around. And at 19, I could not have seen men this way. In the first flush of feminism, it's different. But now I see that I am a more deeper and profoundly feminist woman now. Because I'm saying it's my rules. It's my body. I get to do what I want. And the other thing that's really ironic is that in some ways I did exactly what men have been doing forever, which is I got divorced in midlife. I went out, I started dressing younger, I bought a crazy sports car, and I started dating younger partners. And it worked. It worked beautifully. And I think that is feminism at its core. You know, our society tends to give women three choices that when it comes to sex. You could be a prude, you could be a slut, or you could be desperate. And it's so narrow and awful. Why can't you just be who you are at any stage of your life? And don't you have the right to feel beautiful and sexual at every stage of your life? Or the opposite, to say, look, I want to be invisible. I don't want to be sexual. I don't want people to notice me. That's fair too.
Well, I have to say that looking at the TED Talk, how long ago was that, the one that I showed?
That was 6 years ago, 7 years ago.
7 years ago. And the book covers a period of how many years ago?
About 4 years ago. So when I gave the TED Talk, I was still married. I was really unhappily married, and I wasn't having sex. And I think when you look at the difference, I mean, I'm really proud of the TED Talk and what I look like and how I delivered that talk. But I think I'm a completely different woman today. That
is exactly my point, because I don't mean this. I'm blunt. You're blunt. I have to say, Leslie, it was an exquisite presentation, but you looked a bit frumpy.
I did. I thought that's how you had to look in your late 40s.
And now you're gorgeous, you're glamorous, you look probably 15 years younger. And I wasn't even going to mention this, but it just came to me, and I kept looking at you, and I thought, what's going on here? I don't like what she's wearing. She's stuck. She's stuck in a groove. So Leslie got her groove back, which is great.
It's true. And the men that I write about in The Naked Truth are how I got it back. And this happens to a lot of women, Philip, that I bought into the idea that to be the perfect wife and the perfect mother, I had to be asexual. And that I couldn't really be myself because I was so focused on pleasing a man, one particular man, my husband, and taking care of my children. And I think this happens. I see many, many, many beautiful women out there who are similarly frumpy, who haven't put on makeup in a long time. And it's not that the key is makeup. It's that they're just not, they've neglected a big part of themselves. And what you're seeing is the result of the 5 boyfriends that I had for a year who told me again and again and again, no, you're beautiful. Yeah, you might be wrinkled. Your body might look a lot different than it did at 19, but you're gorgeous. And the thing that the men liked the most about me, which was not hard to come up with, is that I really loved having sex. And I think that there's no better way to get back in your body than having one, or in my case, more fabulous sex partners who appreciate you sexually and who you can really let loose with. And that's what happened in The Naked Truth. And I recommend it to anybody. And to me, it's the joy of being older, is that I don't have to please anybody. I really just have to please myself now.
Well, let's talk about orgasms. And I really enjoyed the research into this. I must say, I spent a lot of time researching this. But seriously, this is a very serious point. So people over 50, any age, but women over 50, listen to this. And this is kind of a little preamble here, but this is important, I think. After I digested every morsel of The Naked Truth, I feel so privileged, Leslie, to know what specific sexual acts and erogenous areas bring you to the greatest climaxes. But the fact is, women also need orgasms for health reasons. So what I discovered, and I'm so ignorant, I'm a typical man, I didn't know this. For example, orgasms stimulate the release of oxytocin, aka the love hormone. They boost testosterone levels, act as a powerful pain reliever, and obviously keep you in good physical shape. The only downside that I can see is that they make you scream out loud and scare the wits out of your cat. I was actually going to say pussy, but that's your favorite word in the book. Sex is, I am coming out of myself today, figuratively speaking. Sex is good for women's health, especially after 50. So how about a few suggestions? And I didn't warn you about this, but I know you have your book on hand there. Otherwise, you can borrow mine here. How about a few suggestions from your cheat sheet for single women, just a handful of single women of a certain age, or indeed any age, on how to find men? And you've got a cheat sheet at the back of your book. Do you have your book there?
I do. And I thought that what you were going to ask me to do is give a cheat sheet for how to have better orgasms, which I'm happy to talk about.
Leslie,
too.
can we do that on another show? Because that's going to take at least 2 hours, and we need photographs and videos and demonstrations. So let's do that on another.
Okay. At the very end of The Naked Truth, I have a cheat sheet
yes.
of the biggest things that I learned in this year of 5 boyfriends. The first is to forget everything everyone ever told you about meeting men and dating. And I say men because I'm a heterosexual woman, but this applies for whatever your gender preference is. So that's it. Forget all of the conventional advice. It's all wrong. It's all designed to keep women passive and so that we don't get to choose who we're with. My second tip is to go where the men are. This is so obvious, but how are you going to meet men if you don't go to where they are? So go to a sports bar, go to the gym, go to a ball game, or my favorite, which is go to airports and meet men at airports. Airports are filled with men, and it's so easy to meet them. And that is the best place to go. And it's really clear. I mean, 2 of the men in The Naked Truth I met in the airport, and I've met, dozens more that didn't make it into the book. Oh gosh, what else? Don't play hard to get. It's just a complete waste of time. You're a grown-up. If you like somebody, tell them. This is hard. You have to go out alone all the time. This is really hard, especially for women, and it's against conventional wisdom. Don't take a wingman or a wingwoman. It's really easier to meet people, and it's easier for them to meet you if you go out alone. Sit at the bar for dinner. Don't order room service when you go to a hotel. Sit at a bench and make room for somebody else. Don't, if you can take the subway or a bus or walk somewhere, do that instead of getting into an Uber. Although if the Uber driver is cute, you never know. And I think most of all is to revel in your own sexuality, whatever that means to you. To figure that out and to mine it and embrace it, and to know that you have the right to feel, to be in touch with your sensuality. And I can't resist. There are a few other ones. Older women, you got to wear less makeup. Be transparent. Show your age. Don't be afraid of that. Men don't like makeup anyway. But just be who you are. Make yourself easy to approach. Get off your phone. The last thing is, I think, the easiest. But my mother, who is now dead, would be rolling over in her grave if she heard me say this. Smile at everybody. Friendliness is the sexiest quality of all. And you'll meet a lot of wonderful people if you just walk through life smiling.
When I read that, I have to just meander again. I meander a lot, but I don't always have time to do that. But I did a self-makeover, which my audience knows about. And I did that about 2 years ago. I promised myself when I reached a certain age, I would grow old shamefully. And I used Keith Richards and Johnny Depp as my role models. And when I go out, I always talk to people, in fact, embarrassingly so for my wife and daughter. But my wife is shocked that whenever we plan to split up in a store, she knows it will take an hour till I come back, because I seem to be a magnet for people. Hey, are you a musician? Are you an artist? Because when I go out, I've got the whole gear on, It's wonderful when you do make an effort to be a little bit different. Don't wear the standard uniform and smile. It's amazing what magnetism you have to other people.
It's absolutely true. And I feel the same way as a woman. I think you can, as a man, as anybody, if you are who you are and you show it, I think that people see that and feel that. It's almost like they can smell it. And it makes me personally feel so wonderful to walk down the street and have men and women take a second look. They know there's something going on with me, and it's not that I am the most beautiful woman on the street that day. It's not that. It's something inside, and I think that's the same for you too, Philip. When you go out, is that there's something inside you that you like yourself, and you want to connect with other people, and you telegraph that to people. And that's the best way to meet people. It doesn't mean that you're going to have sex with all of them or any of them. It doesn't mean that this is the way to find your soulmate. I'm not sure that it is, but it's a great way to meet wonderful people every day of your life.
Yeah, my wife doesn't let me have sex with other women. She's such a bore. We've been married a long time, and at this point, but anyway, we won't go there. Because I like the blood and my bones on the inside of my body. I shouldn't actually joke about that. That was a Woody Allen quote. You struggled, Leslie, when the world was young with anorexia and some other issues we don't need to go into. And then you had a husband who beat you, then a second husband who belittled you about your body and in other not so subtle ways that clearly battered your self-esteem.
Yes.
How did you equate? This is one of the questions that percolated to the top of my list when I was listening and reading your book. How did you equate your horrendous treatment in your personal life with the incredible success you had in your career?
Oh, that's a great question. I honestly don't know how to answer that. I think it's a lot to expect in life to hit a home run every time you're up at bat. And I've had a marvelous career. I've always had great education and job karma. And I also have amazing female friends and an amazing family. So don't you think it'd be a little bit greedy to say, well, in addition to that, I want to have, I want to meet my soulmate at 22 and live happily ever after.
Yeah.
I guess you just can't figure everything out. And this is still a struggle for me. Every step of the journey is the journey, and I'm still on this journey to figure myself out and figure out why I was attracted to men who were troubled or who were misogynistic. I have no idea how it's possible that you can be somebody who is as confident as I am and still miss all the red flags of men who are out to destroy me. I wish it weren't true, but it's true.
When writing your book, The Mommy Wars, you came to the conclusion that happy moms make happy kids. But you, Leslie, you weren't a happy mom because of the way you became so unloved by your second husband, yet your kids comforted you, and that I read in your book, and that your current book, The Naked Truth, and that from what I gather, that made them stronger. And despite possible embarrassment from this current book, you make them happy.
I hope that I do. Nothing matters to me more. My kids are amazing human beings, and I love them, and they're so supportive of me as a writer and as a mom and as a woman. And this book has not been easy for them because there is not a child in the world who wants their mother to write about her sex life. But we love each other, and we're muddling through. So yes, my kids, I would say the greatest gift of my life was becoming a mom. And I always wanted to since the time I was a little kid. And I went after it with great gusto. And one of the reasons that I did decide to get divorced from my second husband is that I knew I wasn't setting a good example for them. I was a very unhappy woman. I was a happy mom and an unhappy wife. And I stayed married for as long as I possibly could for the sake of my kids. But there came a time where it had to be over. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it for another day. And it's been really hard since then because divorce is never easy, and it's been very hard on my children. But I made the right decision. And I'm so grateful that divorce is legal in our country, that it's relatively easy, and that at any age, you can start over. Thank God. Absolutely.
Just reading about your trysts, it's a very erotically written book, and I thank you for that, because that made it very enjoyable. But I know it wasn't written as an erotic book. It was written, there was so much undercurrent in the book, and in some places I just felt that I wanted to say to you, hey, you're trying too hard. Just enjoy the moment, but don't look beyond the moment. And I know you enjoyed the moment. My God, I know you enjoyed the moments. But I just wanted to, like, at one point, I was going to call you up, and I thought, well, this is stupid. She's already written the book. She's not going to change it just for Silverstone. But I just thought, hell, you're looking too hard. You're getting too emotionally involved. Just enjoy it. So with hindsight, do you think maybe you should have just enjoyed it? I'm not saying take advantage of these guys, but sure as hell, they sure as hell were taking advantage of you as well. Couldn't you have just enjoyed it and not looked beyond that?
Well, I think in some ways I did at the time. I was just enjoying it. But when you write a book, you've got to mine it for the greater meaning. And there's no denying it. I'm a super intense person. And I always have been. I think probably everybody who goes to Harvard College and Wharton Business School is really intense. And I think that I'm much less intense than I used to be. Also, Philip, the thing is, I married a man who almost killed me. Like, I think it gives the rest of your life a gravitas that you can never quite get away from. So every time I am attracted to somebody, I do in the back of my mind think, well, could he be really dangerous? I always think that. Even the men who I meet today, I'm careful. So I think it's too much to ask for me to just enjoy everything at the moment, be very light and fluffy about everything. Although I do think your point is a wonderful one. And even though The Naked Truth is finished, I'm working on the sequel, and I'll try to conduct my research with a little bit of a lighter approach. And I'll report back and let you know how it goes.
If you need any photographs for the book during these trysts, I am very nifty with a camera. I'm very discreet, and I can just sit in the corner. And can you do me a favor? Can you get this book out like next week? Because I'm going into, I hate to use this word, but I have Leslie withdrawal symptoms now. I don't know, everything I say to you today, I knew everything I would say would have a double meaning. Let me get off of this again and get myself out of this foot in mouth situation. How has the Me Too movement helped your crusade on behalf of women?
I think that the Me Too movement is the most important thing that has happened to women, especially women in America, since the feminist movement began with Betty Friedan and Gloria Steinem. It's changed everything for women. And I think that I know what it's done more than anything is shown us the power of uniting. You can, Harvey Weinstein could deny that he raped one woman, but he couldn't deny that he had done it to 50. Same with Bill Cosby, same with Jeffrey Epstein. All of these men are brought down by the fact that women all told their stories. We all broke our silence, and the stories were exactly the same, and they were undeniable. So Me Too has changed everything, and it's not going anywhere. You can't turn back the clock. So it's one of the things that makes right now such a tremendously exciting time to be a woman. It's not that there aren't challenges. There are a lot of them. We have a lot of work to do. But thank God for the Me Too movement. I'm a huge supporter of it and part of that movement. And I'm very proud of all of the women who've come forward to tell their stories.
And it keeps growing. Every day there's a new story. You love traveling. This is a question, actually, that I ask a lot of actors when I see them on stage. And there were moments, especially there was a couple of dancers, Ben Vereen, I asked, and a couple of others, the same question. But I have to ask you this because I have a strange brain when it comes to looking at people's lives and thinking about what they're doing. You love traveling. I'm going to throw a few photos up. One of them is you on a beach, and the other looks like a small waterfall you're standing in front of. You know the photos. Yeah. You love traveling and being in beautiful natural locations, Leslie, such as I said, the beach or on long walks. When you take a hiatus from life on these trips, where does Leslie Morgan's mind drift to?
Well, first of all, I want to tell you that you put your finger on it. My favorite thing to do at any point, anywhere, is to daydream. I love to just lie down or go for a long walk or just lose myself in my own head. And I've done this since I was a very little kid. So I love that. And it's an inward journey that I think is fascinating. So that's what really happens to me. And I can't tell you what, if I started to daydream as soon as this interview is over, I have no idea where that would take me. But I promise you it would take me someplace pretty interesting.
I've just shown those photos. You looked like you were engaged to the location and to the moment.
Yes. Yes. There's nothing like being in a beautiful spot that makes me feel alive, grateful to be alive, grateful for my life, and grateful to be there in nature.
Now, in your book, there are references throughout about cheating. We're talking about your book today, but I'm not getting into too much detail about it because I'm hoping from what we're discussing, people will get a gist of it, but I don't want to give away anything. I mean, book's different to a movie because I don't want to give away anything throughout the book. But I don't like cheating. And I have to ask you this question. I saw a photograph, and I think it was on Facebook, of a German car with a copy of your book in the rear window. Are you being unfaithful to your Audi TT? Tell me you still have it.
I still have the Audi TT. I could look over my shoulder and see it. It's
let's show people the Audi TT. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, with today's guest with her white, lovely Audi TT, which actually, and I'm mentioning this as well because when you rid your life of your husband, you also rid your life of your suburban automobile, and you picked up a sex bomb on wheels, didn't you? An Audi TT. It's
true. I'd been driving a minivan for years. It smelled like dog vomit and dirty diapers, and it was just so depressing.
Okay. Thank you.
And I saw a TT one day, an Audi TT, and I thought, just like I was saying, I want that man, I thought, I want that car. And I went and I got it. And it is my princess mobile. It is, every time I get in that car, I feel like I'm going somewhere interesting. And also, I have met so many men because of that car, because it really turns heads. And I recommend it to anybody. It doesn't have to be a car. It could be a skateboard. It could be a bicycle. I don't care. Something that makes you feel like you're going
excuse me. It has to, being what we call in the UK a petrol head. It has to be a car, and a blonde MILF. I can't believe you thought the word was milk. I had no
idea what it was.
I almost wet myself. Although I told my wife that you had a MILF-mobile, and she said, "Is that a new make?" So
it should be. It's a really good idea.
It's a great. And if you don't know what MILF is, ladies and gentlemen, read the book or look it up. But you all know. I'm talking to a MILF here. A MILF or a cougar? I'm not sure. Both. So memoirs must be a therapy for you. Speaking to an unseen audience, you can try to resolve and unravel the cold case mysteries of your life by recalling the episodes from it, while at the same time acting as therapist to the readers who are still in denial. Does that make sense?
It does. That's exactly, you captured it. That's exactly what I try to do every time I sit down to write. I want to explain myself to myself and explain something greater about the experience of being female to you and to other readers. That's what I'm trying to do. It's what I tried to do with Crazy Love and The Naked Truth and Mommy Wars and Baby Chase, all of them.
You once said that sharing your previous memoir made you vulnerable. Once again, I disagree. And after all of your success in your career or careers, I think it shows a brave and courageous woman who won against the odds. And despite the mental scars, I assume you will carry possibly forever. So I think you are the Megan Rapinoe of literature and of life.
What a nice thing to say. What a great compliment. Thank you.
Yeah. And you both like the same words as well to use when... Leslie, why don't you read us an extract from the book?
Okay. I will. I'm going to read you the scene that occurs right after the first time that I had sex. After, not having sex for 4 years, and right after Dylan and I met in the hotel room. Okay?
Yeah.
I felt delirious with sex, sore in all the right places, smelling salty, like Dylan's saliva and sweat and more. Although here's a secret. The sex itself was awkward and fumbling, and I didn't even get close to coming. I was so anxious I couldn't get wet. Dylan didn't know how to get me wet. We were as tense as you'd expect two strangers in a hotel room would be. None of that mattered. I was overjoyed to be having sex again, even mediocre sex. And apparently, Dylan didn't know the difference. His responsiveness and enthusiasm made up for his inexperience. At one point, prior to the actual much anticipated consummation, as we were kissing and I was in general marveling at how tanned and smooth his torso was, I noticed a whitish scar on his right shoulder. Without thinking, I leaned down and kissed it. I flushed for a second. Was that the kind of thing I'd do to my kids if they had a boo-boo? To my relief, Dylan lay still as if he enjoyed it, closing his eyes to absorb the sensation more fully. So I let my lips travel down to his right nipple. I kept them there and sucked gently, all wet and warm the way I liked it, using the tip of my tongue for emphasis. This made Dylan shudder and moan, which was unexpected and very nice. What came next was even nicer. "Ah," he said, "no one has ever done that to me before." And I thought, really? Wow, he was actually more the virgin than I was. We lay there, nude under the cool sheets in the shadows, his muscular arms wrapped around me for what felt like hours. I wanted the night to last forever. I pressed my butt and the backs of my thighs against his smooth abs, soft penis, and scratchy pubic hair, like I was trying to use my skin to memorize the contours and unfamiliar sensations. I'd forgotten how good it felt to be in a man's arms, and the indescribable feeling of having a cock inside me again. "You haven't missed a beat, babe," Dylan said in a husky voice from behind me, hugging me tighter, burying his face in the hair at the nape of my neck. "I've never been with a woman who enjoyed sex as much as you just did. Have you always been this way?" The answer was so complicated, I didn't even give it a try. I had no desire to darken the moment with tales of Marty's twisted attempts to shame me sexually. Instead, I rolled over and pressed my naked body against his naked body and kissed him. Dylan kissed me back. Then he whispered, laughing a little, "You're pretty pleased with yourself, aren't you?" I closed my eyes and buried my face in his neck. I couldn't stop smiling, because I was.
I wish I could applaud you for that. I love the way you read it. You read it exactly the way I heard you read it, and it was an exquisitely delicious piece, and I appreciate you sharing that.
Thank you.
Do you have a public reading coming up anywhere?
I'm trying to think the next time. I have some fabulous book parties coming up, but none of them are public. I have a lot on my website. I have a lot of clips of me reading from the book and me with my sort of key messages, key learnings from The Naked Truth. So I think that's the closest that people could come. If they go to lesliebooks.com, they can see that. And I will post more there too.
Well, I have throughout the show got Leslie Morgan Steiner. Remember the Steiner on the website, folks. And of course, but we'll get to that in a minute. I have a special request for my audience.
Yes.
A special request for my audience, both on Facebook and on YouTube. I would like you to make a contribution, if you can afford one, in any amount, in my guest's name, Leslie Morgan, to One Love. And I have been wearing this shirt, which I had made for today's show. And I'm saying that because the One Love organization I didn't buy it from them because I don't believe they have one with the website on. So that's why I've been wearing it. And I hope they'll forgive me for this if they see it. but obviously it's for a good reason, a good cause. Leslie is a board member of the foundation. One Love was founded in 2010 to honor Yardley Love, a student who was beaten to death by her ex-boyfriend just weeks before their graduation. After her death, Yardley's friends and family were shocked to learn the statistics about relationship violence and to realize that no one knew how at risk Yardley really was. At the end of today's show, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be playing a 3-minute video which will explain more about Yardley and the foundation. I urge you to stay after we finish chatting here and watch it. And I will also have a link to the foundation below the YouTube video, along with my guest's link. My guest today is, I hope, my new best friend, Leslie Morgan, whose latest book, The Naked Truth, and let me just put this on the screen because if I'm not mistaken, I am mistaken. I thought I had a photo of it, but I don't. So let's put it in front of the camera. There it is, folks. There it is. It's a beautiful cover, and you ain't seen nothing yet. Wait till you open it up. It's a wonderful book. It's available everywhere, and especially from Leslie's website, which has been on the screen, LeslieMorganSteiner.com. I just remembered that I do have, let me put this on the screen and keep it on the screen between us. This is the website for joinonelove.org. So I'm keeping that between us on the screen right now. That's the website to donate something towards the organization. But you do it after you've watched the movie. I'll keep it on the screen even while the movie's playing. So The Naked Truth is available everywhere, especially from Leslie's website, LeslieMorganSteiner.com. Not only, as I said before, not only did I read the book, I also listened to Leslie read it. You can buy the hardcover, the ebook, and the audio download. Go to Leslie's site, and that connects you with the publisher, Simon & Schuster. I don't do this normally, but I'm doing it today. I had special thanks, shout out to Alex and Fatima at Pace Public Relations, who did a smashing job for both of us, my guest and myself, Leslie and me, for making today's chat happen. They're brilliant. Leslie, I'm hoping we will meet up in New York City or even Philly at some point to have a coffee and chat.
I'll try not to spill it on you.
I was going to say that I will steer clear, but I'm not the kind of person you want to spill coffee on anyway.
You've been very kind and generous, and you've made me feel wonderful inside, and I really, really appreciate that. I've loved this conversation so deeply, Philip. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. I really do. I mean, that's my job, and I only have people on the show who I am impressed with, and you're a very strong woman, and you are somebody that we can learn a lot from. I have to also mention, there's no reason why I should mention this, but I had my T-shirt made at the very last minute last night while I was doing research. It was done within an hour by a guy called Terence at Custom Creations in King of Prussia Mall. So he took it off the website and copied it for
wonderful.
Me. Leslie,
people are amazing.
Leslie, you've been amazing, and I do hope the Earth moved for you today.
It was like going to another planet, but fortunately, I didn't scream, so I think that's good.
Yeah, I think we're going to leave that there. I am going to be in touch with you. I am going to probably be disconnecting from you very rudely, but I don't. It's only because our part is just about completed here. And I am now, ladies and gentlemen, going to play you the video. It's about 3 minutes of One Love. At the end of it, this is the organization that is very important to Leslie. I would urge you, if you're moved by it as I was, please contribute in her name or in anyone's name. Just contribute. And Leslie, this is the first of many appearances on the show.
Wonderful.
And don't be a stranger.
I won't.
So
thank you so much.
To the rest of your life, cheers. And cheers, ladies and gentlemen. Love you all. Love you, Leslie. Love everybody.
Thank you.
And I'll chat with you soon, Leslie. Right now,
Thank you.
let's find out a little bit. Let's end the show by finding out a little bit about One Love. Cheers all.
Thank you.
On July 17th, 1987, in Baltimore, Maryland, Yardley Love was born. And right away, she was a force to be reckoned with. From her enormous heart to her contagious smile, you couldn't help but feel joy in Yardley's presence. In 2006, Yardley started college at the University of Virginia, where she played for the women's lacrosse team. 4 short years later, in May 2010, Yardley Love's life came to a shattering halt.
Yardley's former boyfriend forced his way into her apartment and brutally beat her to death. The Baltimore native's body was discovered face down on the bed in her college apartment. The murder sent shockwaves throughout the school.
Hundreds gathered to mourn the lacrosse player's death, aware that they sat near the spot on the lawn where Love was supposed to accept her diploma in 3 weeks.
Devastated by the loss of Yardley, her family created One Love, a foundation that educates young people about the difference between healthy and unhealthy relationships so that they may seek help before an abusive relationship escalates to violence.
I love the fact that it keeps Yardley's memory alive in such a positive way. And I love the fact that we hear feedback from so many people that have gotten out of a dangerous relationship because of us. And I honestly feel that we're saving lives.
Because here's the sad truth. Yardley Love was killed and her death was avoidable if only anyone in her life, including her, understood the visible yet often misunderstood signs of an unhealthy relationship. This is why One Love works to make sure others have the information that Yardley, her friends, and her family did not. Because unfortunately, Yardley's story is more common than most people realize. In fact, more than 1 in 3 women and more than 1 in 4 men will experience relationship violence in his or her lifetime. One Love aims to not only bring awareness to these unacceptable statistics, but to ultimately change them.
Our workshop Escalation is a 90-minute workshop that we're taking to college campuses, and it's focused on educating young people about what relationship abuse is, and then empowering them to make change in their communities. You've just watched this very powerful fictional depiction, and all of a sudden there's this giant reminder that this is very, very real.
The workshop has been so successful since it started on college campuses in 2015 that One Love is now taking it to high schools and communities across the country.
It's really going to spark a conversation on a topic that hasn't been talked about.
One Love also connects with young people online by releasing videos that show what the problem looks like, sounds like, and how easily it can be hidden behind seemingly kind words.
Because I love you.
Skip class with me. Let's stay in bed today.
You were walking with Mark? Because I love you. This Jason number?
Delete.
And Ben?
Delete. That's not love.
Through compelling workshops and emotionally powerful content, One Love has started more than a conversation. It's inspired nationwide partnerships, activated community events, and empowered young people everywhere. What began with one family in one place has spread to an entire country and started a movement. But One Love's work is nowhere near complete. Not until every community across the country is equipped with the tools to step up and speak out. So join One Love, and together let's educate others about the signs of unhealthy relationships so that we can build stronger communities and change lives.